Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be around the world. It is News Roundup here on iThemes Training. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host at iThemes Training, and it's time. Once again, every month we take a look across the news in the WordPress world, and we bring you a digest of that news that I think is important for folks who run an agency working with clients to know about. So there's plenty of news out there in the WordPress world, but we always put a little bit of a slant on it to those of us that are doing client things with WordPress. And so if you haven't been with News Roundup, in News Roundup for a little while, you notice we have a bit of new branding on our slides. That is because iThemes is becoming solid WP. That transition is well underway. And I really like everything that I've seen related to it. So a lot of cool updates to the software is coming and many other things. So if you missed our town hall last week, that link is in the replays there on the iThemes training site, and you can check that out and learn about all the new stuff that's going on with Solid Security, the next version of iThemes Security that is to come. If you're just joining us in Zoom, open up the chat and say hi. Tell us where you're logging in from, and you will find, once again, the links for all of the things. There is a download link for the slides if you'd like to follow along. That's particularly helpful for this webinar or this live stream, because at the bottom of every slide, we do give you the reference link for just about everything that we show. So if you want to go and read up more, you'll have the link there to click in the slides. Also, the link is there in the chat for the replay. About an hour after we wrap up, we'll have the replay of this live stream, as well as the chat log and the transcript and the slide link as well. So let's get started, shall we, with, as we always begin, news from Core. And we're getting close, very, very close to the WordPress 6.3 launch. So WordPress 6.3 will drop on August the 8th, and we will have our own launch event on August the 9th. So Tuesday, August the 8th is the drop date for WordPress 6.3. And on that very next day, Wednesday, August the 9th, our lead developer for Solid WP, Timothy Jacobs, is going to walk through the primary features of this new version of WordPress. We've done this for the past several releases, and it's always super informative for one reason, because Timothy is just an excellent presenter. He's one of these rare people that is both a brilliant genius level developer, but also has the ability to explain things in a way that regular people can understand. And he always does a great job of humanizing the features and what's going on. Timothy is a core committer to WordPress and also one of the maintainers of the WordPress REST API. So he is very much connected to the whole core process. If you've not yet signed up for this event, you can do so at the link below to learn all about the things with WordPress 6.3 that are coming. We're going to give you an overview here in the next several slides, but the full event coming the day after release there on Wednesday, August the 9th at 1 p.m. Central Time. So here's where we stand in the calendar. Release candidate 1 drops today. It may have already dropped with 2 next week. Release candidate 3, August the 1st, the dry run, Monday, August the 7th, with that general release scheduled for August the 8th. The core team almost always hits these numbers, these deadlines, so we can expect WordPress 6.3 to release on August the 8th. Now, let's talk about some of the key features that are coming in this latest version, and we're going to start out with the most interesting feature to me, and that is the command palette. So we've talked about this in previous roundups in the Gutenberg section, because this feature is already available in the Gutenberg plugin. And just, if this is new to you, the Gutenberg plugin is the place where all of the development for Project Gutenberg happens. The block editor, the site editor, and all the other pieces. And then at every core release, the next major core release, in this case, 6.3, all of the work in the Gutenberg plugin that has happened since WordPress 6.2 will get rolled into WordPress 6.3. So all the features of the Gutenberg in Project Gutenberg we've been talking about since WordPress 6.2 was released, all that gets rolled into the block editor, and there's lots of things that are going to change. One of those is the command palette. Now, they went back and forth on a name for this. We'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, this is a quick search. If you love keyboard shortcuts, you are going to love the command palette, because it's going to real quick let you hit a keystroke, and there'll be a little search field that pops up. You can type something and just jump right to different places of the admin. Like right here, add new, and that populates the links for add new post and add page. It's designed as this quick search for the whole WordPress admin area. And what's really exciting about this is that it's extensible. That means that developers can create plug-in code, more or less, to tap into the command palette functionality and do different things with it. So we'll see developers extending the feature set of the core command palette function and do super cool things. So they went back and forth about the name for what they were going to call this, and they settled on command palette. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It was chosen because that combination of words was consistent with other tools, but also easily translatable, and that's what they landed on. So here's how it works. Here's a quick keystroke, pops open the little quick search, and right there, click to the footer. Boom, right there, boom. Now you're in the site editor, and you're editing around in the footer, and you can do all the various things that you might want to do. It's going to do something else here in a minute in this video, I believe. Yep, there's another search. Look at the add new page. Let's add a new page. Okay, leave that, and boom, we're in a new page. So that's how it's going to work. And you can imagine how developers might tap into that core feature and start doing really neat things inside of WordPress. So I'm looking forward to see how that is going to change the WordPress interface as we know it. Something else that's going on here is a terminology change. So what we've known to this point as reusable blocks have been renamed patterns. Now, a reusable block is a section of blocks that is kind of like a template. You can create it on a page or post in the block editor and then save it as a reusable block, and it gets stored up here, and then you can just kind of drop that in other places. It's a really neat way to reuse content throughout your WordPress site. Now, they've changed the name of this for various reasons, and they're deciding to call it patterns now. So reusable blocks are patterns. Some are synced and some are non-synced. Okay. The move is aimed at reducing confusion between reusable blocks and block patterns, but some people think this is just even more confusing. You can make up your own mind on this. Synced patterns are going to update all instances at once, while non-synced patterns can be edited one at a time. So a synced pattern is like your current reusable block, where it's synchronized across the whole site. So if you've got maybe a call to action button in a nice row with a background, and that's a synced pattern or reusable block, when you change that once, everywhere it's used throughout the site gets updated. And so that's what they're trying to change up with this naming change. This diagram is really helpful, where now we use the term reusable block. That is going to be called a synced pattern, or a fully synced pattern. What we now call block patterns are non-synced patterns. So there you go. That change is coming in WordPress 6.3. So 6.3 also is going to include major site editor workflow improvements. So the site editor, which is the block editor in use in other areas of your site other than the WordPress content area. So the site editor lets you use the block editor in your headers and sidebars and footers, and page templates, things like that. It has gotten a lot better. It was a hot mess when it first released, and it's gotten a lot better with this 6.3 release. WordPress 6.3 is going to make it easier and faster. The edit site link, which is up in the admin bar. Before, when you clicked edit site, it would take you into the site editor, but it would load the home page instead of kind of what you're looking at the moment you click edit site. So that was a little confusing, and now they've gotten it more context aware. So what you're editing on the front end, when you hit edit site, it's going to take you to that same spot in the site editor, which just makes sense. The update is going to take you directly to the correct template. If you're like in a WooCommerce product template, for example, and you click that, it takes you to that spot in the site editor. So that's good. It makes sense. The context aware feature is it makes it easier for users to know where they are and not have to know the exact name of the template in the hierarchy. So it's good. It's a good change. Some other things coming in WordPress 6.3, improved page management within the site editor. So before, the site editor was just for dealing with headers and footers and sidebars, and you really couldn't get into pages and individual things like that. They've now moved that functionality into the site editor. And so it looks like this. So when you're in the design section, you can click pages, and here's a list of all the pages on your site. You can add a new page. At this point, you can see that happening right there. and, add a block, do all these things. Here's how it looks. And then it'll bounce you right back out to the site editor when you're finished right there. You have all the page information, post status, slug, all of that there. And now you're back into the site editor. So this is really nice. And this is going to be the way the WordPress interface is evolving. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So it's kind of nice. I like it. It makes a lot of sense. Also, site authors will be able to seamlessly switch back and forth between templates and page content within the editor. So think about it this way. You'll be in the site editor, and not only will you be able to edit the template of a page, you'll actually be able to jump in and edit the content of a particular page. So let's show you how this works. So right here, we're in the About page, and this is the actual content of the About page itself. So we're going to go in and change the title of the page, and notice that it updates right up here. We're going to add a featured image, or this background image, to the spot right here. So there that is. But now, okay, we want to change the way this looks. So we just clicked Edit Template, and it shows up in the breadcrumbs that now we're in the page template, not just the page itself. So we're going to change that image now to full width, and we're going to make the page title centered. And when I go back to the page, look, now it's updated. So this is really great. I mean, if you've been using a page builder to do this sort of thing, like Beaver Builder or Elementor or whatever, and you have like a Beaver Themer layout or the Elementor Pro layout that affects your pages, this is exactly the same way that works, and it's pretty smooth in the site editor. It was a little bit clunky. It's a lot clunky when it was first released, and it's gotten better and better with every iteration. Pretty cool. Something else they've added in 6.3 is a distraction-free mode in the site editor. Now, this is a big deal for me, especially because if you've ever tried to edit a page that has a complex layout and you're doing it in blocks, you're kind of restrained between, the left and right sidebars in your editor. And sometimes it would be nice just to see the page, how it looks, without having to preview it. And that's what this distraction-free mode is going to do. So take a look here. Now we're in the standard editor over here with our sidebar, but watch what happens when we click the kebab menu and we click distraction free. Now, when we click back over into the content, look, now we see the whole page, and it'll be full width if it's full width. It's a really nice view on editing the site. So I'm right here in the editor. I can do all the editor things, and my sidebar doesn't show up until I go back over there and toggle it. So pretty cool. They've also added a new style book. We talked about this a few months ago in the Gutenberg section. The style book can be activated as you're browsing. And so you go in here to the site editor and styles, and you can see all the various styles and preview those live over there in the column. So pretty nice bit of functionality. You can change the styles there as well. Something else they've done here is in WordPress 6.3, there will be revisions to styles. So if you've ever gone through and made changes to one of your global styles in the style book, there currently is not an easy way to roll that back to a previous state. But now there's revisions for these style changes, just like there are page and post revisions. So look, we're going to go in here. We're going to edit this style. We're going to change up our layout a bit, maybe add some padding to this element, change up some things. Okay, we've saved our style. Now let's go here under the kebab menu. And now look, we see all our revisions there where we can preview or roll back those revisions to where they were before. So it's really, I mean, this interface is quite good. And congrats to the dev team for doing that. This is a really easy interface to use. Also in WordPress 6.3, they've changed the way, or give you another option for the way your top toolbar is going to work. So if you've ever been editing a page or a post in the block editor, and the little toolbar across the top, like if you're typing in a paragraph, there's the bold italic and the center edge text justification, all those links, they kind of get in the way of what's around it. Well, now you have an option to actually push that up to the top. So in the kebab menu, you can tell it top toolbar, boom. And when we click over here, look, your toolbar is now going to be up here instead of in the content, which in a lot of cases, that might be better. So pretty cool. I like that a lot. Nice change. And you have the option of how, whether you want to view it regular or up in the top or whatever. So pretty cool. They've also added a couple of new blocks. We talked about these last time. The reading time is now a core block that can be added. In addition to the details block, which we covered last month, this is kind of a text expander. Like you toggle, here's this little arrow. What's the best thing about Switzerland? And you open it up, you click the text and it opens up. The flag is a big plus, but bump, right? Ha ha ha, very funny. But yeah, this is a nice little addition for show and hide text, which is pretty nice. Several other things. There's color and layout support for the cover block, caption styling for images. A lot more curated patterns have come out. Easier now to create a pattern and lots more. So plenty to talk about in WordPress 6.3, and we'll give it the full overview with Timothy there on August the 9th, and he'll be there to answer questions as well. Something else you'll want to be aware of is that WordPress 6.3 is going to drop support for PHP 5. Hopefully, none of you have sites that are still on PHP 5 dot something, but there are still some sites that are back on PHP 5.6. So about 4% of WordPress installations are still way back on PHP 5.6, which has been unsupported for years now. So with the release of WordPress 6.3, PHP 7 will be the minimum supported version. So it will, PHP continues to grow, and 7 hasn't been supported in a while. But when you have a project as big as WordPress, that's 40-something% of the entire internet, dropping support for PHP, it's a big deal, and it can affect some sites. 4% of 40% of the internet is still a lot of sites, and they need to update their sites, but you don't want to do something in core that's going to break somebody's site. It's a tension that the core team has to deal with. But the argument is that bumping that PHP version up is going to improve the plugin ecosystem, the perception of the project by others, and the ability for developers to work better. PHP core support is still very good for PHP 8, 8.1, and 8.2. If there is a site that is still running PHP 5.6, it cannot upgrade to 6.3, but the core team will continue to provide security updates for the WordPress 6.2 branch that the site will remain on. So let's say some major issue, some security issue comes out in core WordPress. Not only will they, release a 6.3.1 or 2 or whatever, they'll also update the 6.2 branch so that those sites get their updates, which is a good thing. All right. After 6.3 is released, we have now reached the end of phase 2 of Project Gutenberg. Now, Project Gutenberg is a 4-phase project. The first was the creation of the block editor to work in the WordPress content area. The second, which we're just completing with WordPress 6.3, was the movement of the block editor not only from in the content area, but also in the headers and footers and sidebars and page templates across your site. That's going to be completed in WordPress 6.3. And now phase 3 comes along, which is the collaboration phase. Y'all, the things that are coming in the next versions of WordPress are going to be really, really something. So this is focused on real-time collaboration and improvements to the WordPress media library. So real-time collaboration is going to enable concurrent post edits. So how many times have you gotten into a page? Oh, you can't edit this because some person is already on this page, right? Don't you hate that error? Well, now you'll be able to both edit the content at the same time. So you'll be able to add comments, suggest edits, tagging users for peer review. There'll be document level history browsing and single block change restoration. Here's how that might look. Maybe you've seen something like this in other tools. So here's one person editing, and here comes another person. And you'll be able to see each other doing things on, so there are other apps that do collaboration this way. And this is coming to core WordPress. Yes, like Google Sheets or Google Docs, Google, whatever it's called now. It's very similar, right? Or one of those things that this reminds me of is the way Figma does collaboration. You can see people mousing around. It's really pretty cool. So that is all coming. The WordPress media library is also going to get significant updates. My goodness, it needs it. The WordPress media library has not been significantly updated since WordPress 3 dot something. And even then it wasn't a big update. But things like categorization of images, tagging, how WordPress handles attached media, which is not great. And then overall user interface improvements are coming as part of WordPress 6.4, and that is overdue. I'm looking forward to that. Something else we can see is a very ambitious, it's being described, overhaul to the WordPress admin area. Again, the WordPress admin UI has not changed much since somewhere around WordPress 4. It's been a long time since the admin interface has been changed at all. And major overhaul is underway or planned. The update is going to improve the overall navigation scheme, the user experience, and make it more easier, more intuitive and accessible for all users. So the goal is to evolve the WordPress admin to more of a fluid editing feel, kind of like, when we were just showing the videos of the site editor, the way it moves back and forth between screens and the animations, it just feels good. That's what's going to come to the core WordPress admin area as part of WordPress 6.4. So the proposed plans also include an extensible design system, meaning the WordPress admin right now is not the easiest thing to restyle and change up. Whatever this new system is they're going to build is going to be extensible, meaning developers can build extensions and plugins to easily modify the way the admin area behaves. They're also going to address the pollution of top-level menu items. Thank goodness. Don't you hate it when somebody's plugin installs a top-level menu item? It's one of my pet peeves. I see this all the time in the plugin roundup. They're going to deal with that in this overhaul. They're also going to deal with all those admin notices that show up in your admin area. And for once and for all, have a solution for that. So developers emphasize the need for new design to handle sites with large number of posts, pages, categories, and menus. All those things are going to be taken into account in this new redesign. And I say it couldn't come soon enough. Pretty cool. This is a very early possible preview of what something might possibly look like one day. Is that enough? Is that enough caveats? Who knows what it's going to look like, but maybe something like this. Very clean, very nice, pretty good stuff, right? Here's a dark mode view that you might see as well, but a lot cleaner and easier. 6.4 betas are out at the end of September, release candidates in October, and a general release on November the 7th. That is the plan. So big changes coming to WordPress. Pretty cool. All right, if you start playing with block patterns or patterns in general, there is now a curated patterns section in the WordPress pattern library. And now they've started showing curated patterns by default. Now, curated patterns are patterns that were developed by core WordPress.org core team members, and they're just better right now. I mean, honestly, they're done better. They're done well. There are community contributed patterns that are out there, but this will allow you to first see curated patterns across the top. If you haven't taken a look at the WordPress pattern directory, just go to wordpress.org and hit patterns, and you'll see all the patterns that are out there. You can drop these right into your block editor layout. They work really well. It's pretty cool. So discussions are ongoing about how theme builders can have predefined patterns and bundles of patterns out there that are just, they automatically work with those themes. And all this is good. It's Rich Tabor, who's a big developer as far as in the block world, says the top ones, the curated ones are the best, but there's still lots of work to do here. This is definitely something to watch. So Sherry's saying she didn't know that existed. So go out there and play around with it. It's out there at, I think it's wordpress.org/patterns, but don't quote me on that. But just go to wordpress.org. You'll see the link. It's a directory just like themes and plugins, and you can use any of them right there in the block editor. All right, let's talk about some news from Gutenberg. That was a lot of core news, almost 25 minutes worth there. News from Gutenberg. A lot of development is happening in the Gutenberg plugin. Gutenberg 16.1 dropped on June the 29th. They have now created a new pattern library, or a new way to access your own patterns in your library. You can now create and sync design patterns across your own site and access them in the pattern library. We talked about how reusable blocks are renamed to patterns, and you can now allow these synchronized updates with patterns across your site. So here's how it'll look in my library in the site editor. I can create a pattern very easily. Here's my pattern name, image with text. It's going to be synced or not synced. And then I'm going to create that, and then it'll be saved. It's really easy to do. So if you've not played with this yet, install the Gutenberg plugin. You can play with it. Unsynced patterns can be edited independently, like we talked about. All your reusable blocks, custom template parts, and patterns are displayed and searchable right there in your library. And they're also available with the inserter. You can just hit slash and start typing the name of your pattern. It'll pop right up there, just like you would drop a block in. Really easy to use. Something else we talked about was the distraction-free mode that's coming to WordPress 6.3. That was released in Gutenberg 16.1 back on June the 29th. Something else, this is pretty cool. Text blocks now offer footnotes. So this is something you had to have a plugin to do in the past to add really nice footnotes if it's a scholarly work of some sort, or you just want to footnote something in your blog post, you can do that now. It built right into the paragraph tool, paragraph block. So right here, let's just highlight WordPress, drop down, and look, footnote is an option. And right there, I can just start typing in the footnote, and it'll track all that and keep them at the bottom of the page. So that is pretty cool. That is a core block, part of the core of Gutenberg now in 16.1. The site editor sidebar has also been renewed. Again, this is something that'll be in Gutenberg 6.1. Things are a little simpler here. We have the ability to make some changes to things right there in the site editor. You can also more easily see where you are in template parts versus pages, and so forth. So we talked about this a little bit in the animation showed when we were talking about WordPress 6.3. All this was released back in Gutenberg 16.1. Real easy to get your way around here in the site editor. The navigation and the usability of the site editor was it was complicated. I had a lot of trouble using it when I played with it. It is now much better. Image block has gotten some enhancements. These are really cool, and this will be in WordPress 6.3 as well. So here's an image. I can change the aspect ratio right there very easily. Also, I can quickly add additional, if I want to just grab an image, I can drop it on an image block and it just updates it. That's kind of cool. So that is working now in Gutenberg 16.1. Gutenberg 16.2 released last week. And one of the things they did here was more of the work on getting synced and non-synced patterns work and consolidating how all of those are going to work together. We saw something of this in the previous slide with the video, but now there's a toggle that says keep all pattern instances in sync, which makes a little more sense than the way it was labeled before. It'll also make it more easily translatable. So as you look at some of these changes that WordPress core is making, and you wonder, why is this so, why can't I just say sync patterns or something like that? Keep in mind, this is a global product, and there are people of many different languages using WordPress, and all this needs to be translated, and having a more explanatory setting makes the translation a little easier, which is pretty nice. There's also the ability to consolidate patterns into your own My Patterns area, where you can more easily categorize and store your own patterns and make those easier to use. You can also see how they've put your made template parts a little more readily accessible. The header parts are all together. There's an easier to understand icon here. I think before they all used to have this diamond icon. So they've added some icons there to make things a little better. This one's kind of interesting. They've now added vertical text orientation. That is a good beginning to support the fourth phase of Gutenberg, which is internationalization and translation in core WordPress. And so now there is the option in a paragraph block to orient the text vertically for vertically written languages. So you can do that in Gutenberg 16.2, which is pretty outrageous. All right. Let's turn the page from Gutenberg and start talking about security. My goodness, it was another big month for plugin vulnerabilities. 196 plugin vulnerabilities have been patched. 102 plugins are vulnerable, active now, or they've been closed. And there were 7 theme vulnerabilities this month. And as always, we remind you that you can keep your site secure with the version management feature of iThemes Security Pro. Twice daily, your site is scanned for vulnerabilities using the patch stack scanner, which is just excellent, head and shoulders above the rest. iThemes Security can email you if it detects a vulnerability, and it also has the ability with a single toggle in iThemes Security Pro to automatically update a vulnerable theme or plugin if the patch is available. So all these things you see in the iThemes vulnerability report, if you're using iThemes Security Pro and you have the version management feature toggled on, It'll automatically update it. If it finds something vulnerable and the patch exists, you don't have to lift a finger. It's going to be automatically patched, probably in many cases, before you even know something was vulnerable. So this is pretty good. Let's talk about a few big plugins that have had some issues that you need to be aware of. The first is Ultimate Member. Ultimate Member has been around for a long time in the WordPress world. It's used on over 200,000 WordPress sites. They had a critical security vulnerability last month that was actively being exploited by hackers. It was a 9.8 out of 10 vulnerability. Huge, huge deal. It allowed an unauthenticated attacker to create a new administrator user. This is not good. So it was a major issue. Security researchers observed a large number of attacks from varying IP addresses on Ultimate Member sites. There was an organized attack on Ultimate Member sites. The plugin released an initial patch for this. It was not sufficient to fix the problem, but the current version 2.6.7 as of today, 2.6.7 was released on July 1, and that does patch the vulnerability. Just make sure, what did I just do? Just make sure that your Ultimate Member is up to date. All right, another big time vulnerability was in the all-in-one security plugin. This was a big deal because the all-in-one security log in the text log that it creates as part of its function was actually logging username or logging passwords of people logging in plain text in the log. That is not good. PatchTech CEO Oliver Sold warned of hackers harvesting credentials from logs of compromised sites that run this plugin. The issue was fixed in version 5.2, but most users of all-in-one security are running an older, out-of-date version and therefore vulnerable. So make sure if you or someone you know is running all-in-one security, update to beyond 5.2 immediately. When you do that, it's going to go through and wipe the log, so you don't have to do anything else about the log. That's part of the update, but be sure those sites are updated. Big, big deal. Another big vulnerability this month was in the Malcare, Blog Vault, and WP Remote ecosystem. These are owned by the same company. They share a lot of the same code. They had some big vulnerabilities. Affects over 300,000 WordPress sites. It's a security flaw that allows a potential site takeover through stolen API credentials. So some things they could do would be like creating rogue administrator users or uploading random files. Exactly what you'd want a hacker to do. At first, Malcare dismissed this as just industry standard API authentication. However, they did patch the plugin on July the 8th. And there are similar vulnerabilities that were in WP Remote and Blog Vault. Just make sure everything is up to date if you're using any of those plugins. All right, another great article that iThemes published this month that if you haven't read this, this is a read. You should absolutely read this, bookmark this. It's an excellent article by Dan Knaus, who's our technical writer. And Dan does a great job of explaining why WordPress malware scanners don't work. There's new research that shows that scanners that are running within WordPress are vulnerable to being sabotaged. In other words, a compromised environment cannot be trusted to analyze itself. That just makes sense, right? But here's the way this works. If you're running a local malware scanner like WordFence or WPMU Defender or All-in-One Security or Ninja Scanner, and it's scanning WordPress, malware can very easily defeat that because they're all running inside the same WordPress and the same PHP. So, and by the way, even external scanners like Malcare and VirusDie, All-in-One Security, Sakuri, Jetpack Scan, they're all, they're vulnerable because the malware is running inside the same PHP universe. And so as these plugins are sending reports back, the malware can be set to just change what it sends back and say, no malware here. A vulnerable environment cannot be trusted to scan itself. That is really good. So the question is, what do you do? The focus of security policies at the WordPress level should be on login authentication hardening, user management, proper delegation of privileges, and a vigilant version management strategy. That's what iThemes security and solid security are based on. Now, Sue is saying, well, iThemes security runs a malware scan. No, it does not. What iThemes security does is look at the versions of your installed themes and plugins and bounces that off of a database of known vulnerabilities. So WordPress level file scans just don't, that's not what you should rely on because malware can change and it can, malware can defeat a WordPress level file scanner. If you're going to use a file level scanner, it needs to be at the server level. And there are server level malware scanners that do work, that operate outside the WordPress environment and just scan the files. That's what to use. And if you're going to, the security at the WordPress level should be used in addition to that with these particular priorities that I'm talking about right here. Anyway, the article does a great job of explaining this, better than I just did. And I would strongly encourage you to read that article. That's very well done. All right, let's take a look at what's happening with Solid WP. We are still in the process of the rebrand in public as iThemes is becoming Solid WP. We'll look at some changes starting to happen as we get into the fall there, including iThemes Training becoming Solid Academy. I'm super excited about that. We talked about the WordPress 3.0 launch event on August the 9th. I really would invite you to join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We also have some Cadence news. The Cadence 3.1 Blocks 3.1 beta is out, and you can sign up to be part of that at this link right there in the footer. Test that out, see how it's working, and what feedback you have. 3.1 introduces some really neat features like an advanced form block and a progress bar block. And as well, and this is the one feature, the key feature I'm really looking forward to, the ability to rename blocks. So if you're like me and you like the list mode on the side of the block editor, but you have all these rows and different sections, you'll be able to rename those so you can tell what's what in that list view, which is going to be great. Kathy Zant is going to be with us tomorrow for a demo of this new advanced form block, and she'll be there to answer all your Cadence questions as well. Strongly encourage you to test Cadence Blocks 3.1 beta on a staging site. And again, you can be part of that beta at the link below. And talk to Kathy about it tomorrow. A lot of fun stuff. Here's some other upcoming premium training events. We have this month, next week, is our SEO Basics Workshop. Once again, Lindsay Halsey from Pathfinder SEO is going to be with us. She is an extraordinarily good instructor, period, but particularly in her area of specialty in SEO. She's just has a great approach to SEO and teaching people how to do it. So SEO Basics is July 25th and 26th. Also, the masterclass will be next month, which is August 29th and 30th. And so last year's masterclass, by the way, one of the days was focused on local SEO. The second day of the masterclass was focused on local SEO. Since we just did our training event on local SEO with Trisha Clements, which was excellent, Lindsay has swapped that part out. And now on the second day of the masterclass, she's going to be talking about using AI in SEO. And that is going to be great. So those are the next couple of months coming up. We also have Google Analytics Bootcamp coming up in September with David Zimmerman. And this is the first time I'm mentioning this, the October event. You can't register for it yet. There's no information about it yet, except for right here. I am going to be doing a WordPress AI workshop as our premium event in October. And I am excited about this. We're doing some really neat things at the agency with AI right now, both in content development as well as code development. And I've got some nifty tips and tricks that I'll show you how to really up your game with AI in WordPress. So that's coming in October. November, December, of course, will be our starter site premium trainings, as they always come right there at the end of the year. All right. So here's the calendar. If you want to take a look at training.ithemes.com, free upcoming webinars. Here's the next ones coming up that we've mentioned, most of those. Plugin Roundup, August the 1st. Of course, office hours for members throughout every Thursday. All right, let's talk about plugin news. A bunch of things to talk about here. The WordPress plugin review team has added 6 new sponsored volunteers. This is really good news because, as we mentioned, I think last month, Mika Epstein, who was a longtime plugin team contributor, spent, I think she was working full-time, sponsored by, I believe, Bluehost, as a full-time a person working on the WordPress plugin team. This is the group that reviews and approves plugins for the WordPress plugin directory. So it's a critical role. Mika has been doing that for over a decade, and she's going to be stepping down. But now there are 6 new team members that have come in to help with the work. So they're going to be in charge of approving new plugins and maintaining the plugin review handbook. The new team members have been sponsored to more than 50 hours in total. There's still volunteers that are needed. If that's something you'd like to do, you can do it. They need somebody who can at least spare 5 hours a week to volunteer on that team. So if you've got 5 hours to spare, you can be part of that plugin review team, go through the process, see if you meet the criteria they're looking for. It's a very important role. There's a vetting process for new members, and there's a big backlog of plugin reviews that are still needed. There are many plugins out there that they're not live yet in the WordPress plugin directory because there simply isn't the number of eyeballs needed to look at them and approve them for listing. All right, so the link to that application is down there. Learn more at these links down at the footer. Interesting article that was published by plugscore.io was an analysis of 39 different WordPress plugins that have over 1 million active installations. So the most popular plugins in WordPress, what can we learn from these plugins? So first thing we learn is that plugin name matters. The average WordPress plugin title is 33 characters and has 5 words. Why so long? Because of the way the WordPress plugin directory search works. It's like old school Alta Vista search. If you remember Alta Vista, you are an internet geezer like me, and you remember that what you do is you just cram all the words in the title. And that's how the WordPress plugin search works, unfortunately. And so that's why you have these plugin names that are super long, but it works. And these 39 1 million plus plugins prove that. 33 characters and 5 words long on average. The average cost of premium versions is $68 a year. That depends on the category of plugin. E-commerce and security are more expensive than others. The highest cost plugin is $300 a year. That's Woo Express. The lowest premium plugin, $12 a year. I'm not sure what that one was. It is very clear the companies that have plugins in the WordPress plugin directory. The Awesome Motive, which is the company behind WP Beginner, also All-in-One SEO, and many others. They have the highest number of plugins with over 1 million. Here's how they break down as far as category: security, optimization, plugins affecting the admin area, SEO, and backups are by far the primary, with other ones over there. 39 plugins, only 4 offer lifetime licenses. Now, I know, I love to get a good lifetime deal, but let's be honest. You cannot survive in any business with lifetime deals. You just can't. It's a good way to raise a bunch of money really quickly, but a lifetime deal is not, it's not a good business model, because at that point, like, who's going to pay for ongoing upkeep and development of the product? If you're not paying on a regular basis for a product, it's more likely that product is going to slowly disappear or not get updates at all. So yeah, they mostly all follow a subscription model. All right, let's take a look at news on AI. My goodness, do we have many things to talk about in this particular area. Let's see. Let's start off with this one. Amazon has secret plans with Amazon, and they are targeting developers. So an email was recently linked from Amazon that reveals the company's AI plans. Amazon has actually been using some form of artificial intelligence for over 25 years in their back office, but it's still struggling to compete with other AI companies on the scene. So to catch up, Amazon decided, well, let's get into an area of AI that isn't as competitive. So let's focus our AI work on developers. Amazon, as you know, has a huge Amazon Web Services division with lots of different software platforms that people build apps on. And so that's where they're going to focus their AI efforts. So AWS has created a new team called Next Generation Developer Experience to build AI tools for developers. So there's 2 that are out right now. Bedrock, which builds scalable AI applications using APIs from Amazon partners that already exist. So taking these building blocks that are already there and using AI to put things together with them, pretty cool. And they also have something called Code Whisperer, which is a coding companion for AI. I've not played around with either of these, but one thing I do want to play with is Code Whisperer and see how it is, see how it works. Another big tech company talking about AI this month is Google. Google Bard, which is Google's version of Google's competitor to ChatGPT. Google Bard was recently updated with new features that really help it to start to bridge the gap with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is still the one to beat right now, but Bard has just gotten much better in the latest updates. Bard can now speak responses in more than 40 languages with multiple styles and tones. It has also developed integration with Google Lens, which is the Google Images image analyzer. So you can actually upload an image into your prompt and use that uploaded image to as part of your AI conversation, which is pretty cool. You can also pin conversations and share conversations with others, which is kind of nice. Now, not to be outdone, there is a new AI player on the market called Claude. It is from a company called Anthropic, which is an AI safety and research company that is backed by Google. They have released Claude 2, which is a new generative AI model that some people say rivals ChatGPT in some very important ways. Claude 2 uses Apple's terms of service, which means there's a lot of trust factors that are baked in there. So it's maybe a more trustworthy AI than others. But the big deal is Claude 2 can handle 75,000 words at a time, meaning you can paste the entire contents of a 300-page book into Claude at once and say, summarize this book for me in 10 bullet points, and it'll do it. Pretty cool, right? It's also been trained up to current knowledge in 2023. So pretty neat things. If you want to try it out, there's the link, claude.ai/login if you're in the US or UK. If you're not in either of those countries, you can use a similar product called Poe, and there's the link there as well. YouTube has also gotten into the AI market. You may have noticed this, by the way, in your home feed. If you watch any sort of educational content, this is where they've rolled out this feature. YouTube is using AI to create quizzes automatically based on the content of educational videos. So the AI is in the background looking at watching the captions or audio or whatever. And from this video content, it's creating a quiz automatically. So this has revolutionary applications. What is that going to do for training and product tutorials? Watch this and I can automatically generate 5 questions to see how your knowledge was. That is pretty amazing. And that's out there working now. You can read more about it in the TechCrunch article or in the Google support article that talks about these new experiments. The University of Montana has compared ChatGPT with 2,700 college students in a recent test. So these 2,700 students at the university took this test, and somebody out there who was running the sideshow decided they'd have ChatGPT take the test. And the people that were evaluating the test results had no idea that ChatGPT was one of the entrants or one of the people taking this test. ChatGPT scored in the top 1 percentile for originality and fluency. That is pretty amazing in comparison to 2,700 other college students. Pretty amazing. So what do you do with all this? AI is moving so fast. There's a great article this month on The Verge called Hope, Fear, and AI that's talking about some of these things. They conducted a poll of 2,000 adults in the US, asking their thoughts, feelings, and fears related to AI. So despite the widespread media coverage, AI still seems limited. The use of AI products remains limited, usually to younger users or people like us that are kind of on the cutting edge of tech. Respondents showed, just the average person out there, showed high expectations for the impact of AI on society. 74% said that AI is going to have a large or moderate impact on society. They were concerned about the ethics of AI, especially when it came to cloning the ideas and styles of artists. This is a big discussion in the artist community right now. My youngest daughter, in fact, is an art student right now working on her Bachelor's of Fine Arts. The big discussion in her world of the fact that AI is really taking other people's work and modifying it. AI can't really create anything from scratch. It has to take other people's work and modify it. There just seems to be inherent issues with that. The majority of participants in this study recommended, or they favored, regulations on AI development. Something has to happen here. We're going a little fast, and there's not a lot of thought being given, I'm afraid, to the impact of AI on our whole world. So roughly 50% of these respondents expect a sentient AI will emerge at some point in the future. My goodness. A couple of other articles you might be interested in with AI. Here's an interesting post on GoDaddy with some prompts for content creation that are quite good. So if you want to play around with using ChatGPT to create content, there's a good starting place there. Also, 5 ways to use ChatGPT for WordPress development. And I'll tell you, we've been on the agency side doing some very clever things with ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT being the clever one, us just knowing we can ask it questions. It solved some code problems in 10 seconds that would have taken us hours to figure out. It is really cool. So this WP Shout article gives you some insight on how that works. The big question, all right, will AI replace designers? It's a big question out there. And here's a great response from Board Panda. AI will replace the designer's job. And here are images of AI accepting the job. I like that. If you've ever used AI image generation currently, this is, that's pretty much par for the course of what you get. All right, let's move into some other news. How many of you saw this little blurb that hit last week? Stripe is the Stripe Invoicing Plus rates are going to increase on January the 31st. So Stripe's Invoice Plus feature actually launched back in 2021. That feature includes smart retries, quotes, automatic reconciliation, batch invoicing, and an installment plan purchase. So and they did announce this at the beginning, after a 3-year grace period, Stripe is going to begin charging a fee for this service starting on January 31st. It's 0.5% on top of just for the amount of the invoice that's collected using this system. So the question is, I'm using Stripe for my monthly web management billing. Is this going to increase my percentage? The answer is no. I've confirmed this directly with Stripe. If you are using Stripe subscriptions, this does not use the Invoicing Plus service. It's only for the Invoicing Plus. If you create an invoice and use any of those advanced features on invoices, it will charge you an extra 0.5%. It may actually be worth that to use their invoicing service because it's quite good. But if you don't need those services, you can switch to Invoicing Starter at 0.4% per paid, or just create an invoice and share a payment link, and you don't have to pay anything extra. So that's the truth around this. There's been a lot of talk about this going around social media of all Stripe's rates are going up. That is not true. It's only for this one feature if you use it, and then it's only for the payments that come through the Invoicing Plus feature. So does that make sense? Hopefully that gives everybody a big sigh of relief. I was concerned about it, to be honest, because 0.5% over several $1,000s adds up. All right, something else that's happened is that Gravatar, which is an automatic property that is the one that creates, gives you a little image of yourself on various WordPress blogs and other sites. Gravatar has added a new payment feature for its profiles. So you can now add links to PayPal, Venmo, and Patreon in your Gravatar profile. Each profile has a unique QR code to push those transactions through. You can also display links to cryptocurrency wallet if you want to do that. Gravatar is a service from Automatic. It's used on WordPress.org and .com sites, as well as things like Slack, Atlassian, or Trello, GitHub, Stack Overflow, Discuss, OpenAI. If you ever wonder how your picture shows up when you add your email address on a site, it's Gravatar, probably. Automatic, by the way, does not get a cut of any of these payments. They just pass that through. And they're also considering adding Cash App and other payment providers in the future. So that's kind of cool. Something else you may want to be aware of if you're an Evernote user. Evernote has laid off their entire U.S. workforce, and they plan a move to Italy. So their entire operations are moving to Italy under their new parent company, Bending Spoons, which, as I understand it, I believe is an Italian company. I could be wrong about that. Bending Spoons had laid off 129 Evernote employees earlier this year because of Evernote's long-term unprofitability. The remaining U.S. and Chilean employees have just received notice of their layoffs. That's bad news for those folks. Evernote CEO assures their plans for the app are ambitious, and they are now going to proceed with a dedicated Europe-based team. Despite its early success in the space and a large user base, Evernote just has not been able to keep up with other apps, many of which are free, and some of the free apps are even a little more powerful than the Evernote premium version. They've also faced criticism for substandard cryptographic practices and privacy concerns. So just be aware, if you're an Evernote user, you might just want to keep your ear open to that. Doesn't look like anything is urgently needed to change if you're an Evernote user, but just this is something to keep listening for. This is an article that got me a little riled up when I read it earlier this week. There's an accessibility expert who's now been sued by an accessibility overlay product. So Adrian Rosselli is being sued by AudioEye, which is an accessibility overlay provider like the other ones. They put that little overlay where you can change things and make supposedly the site more accessible. AudioEye has accused Rosselli of bias against their overlay product and arguments against relying on overlays for accessibility. Rosselli says that overlays might not detect most accessibility issues. He shares his experience on his blog. That's clickable. You can read those articles. But this company didn't like it, and so they sued this expert for expressing his opinion online. This just burns my biscuits. So this lawsuit has been called a SLAP, which is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. That's a legal term for a nuisance suit that's just, a suit filed by a company with resources against an individual that maybe doesn't have resources to try to silence that person's opinion in the marketplace. By definition, SLAP suits don't have any true legal basis. So we'll see what happens with this. I hate to see that happen to anybody for expressing what is probably a correct opinion about overlays. Yeah. All right, let's move on to some news that is worth a look. Just a couple of things this month as we're already running late on time. Interesting interview here with a featured WordPress professional there at wpcontent.co, Andrei Andreev. Check that out. Interesting interview with him. I see the future of WordPress as an all-in-one platform with everything you need for website building, and you see that coming with all these core changes. Pretty cool. Something else, if you're ready for a new blog post on your own site and you want some great WordPress stats, here are some the newest WordPress stats for 2023 from the iThemes blog. For example, WordPress is 62.3% of the content management system market. So 40-some% of the web at large, 62% of the CMS market, and WooCommerce is used on half of all e-commerce sites on the web. That is pretty amazing. All right, let's wrap up with some WordPress community news. Several things to talk about this month. First of all, there's some WordPress drama floating around. The WordCamp Dhaka WordCamp, which is a city in Bangladesh. WordCamp Dhaka was canceled due to alleged corporate influence on decision-making. This is a big no-no in the WordPress world. The WordPress community team stepped in. All the event organizers and organizers from the local meetup group were removed. The violating companies have been banned from sponsoring WordPress events for a year, but they have not been publicly named by the community team. Some folks are saying, you should name them publicly because as a community, we kind of want to know who was interfering with the organization of a local WordCamp. So far, no information on that. You could probably figure out if you wanted to dig. I haven't taken the time to do so. WordPress community members want greater transparency. And look, Mitch Cantor, who's a longtime WordPress dev at Web Dev Studios, said actively trying to sabotage a WordCamp is a serious breach of trust. I couldn't agree more. I want more information about this. We talked about this a couple of months ago, and there is now a mentorship team in the WordPress community team to bring on people to help onboard them into becoming WordPress developers and serving the WordPress community in other ways. The WordPress community team has initiated its experimental mentorship program with the first 30 mentees chosen from 50 applications. They'll participate across 8 teams in the WordPress ecosystem. Mentorship comprises weekly check-ins, self-directed courses, learn-up sessions, and contributions to the team. It's a really good way to bring people into the WordPress space. It's being modeled after similar programs that have had great success in the Drupal community and other open source programs. Pretty good stuff. So glad to see that happening. We've got several US-based WordCamps on the schedule. It's great to see more of those coming. The WordPress Community Summit and WordCamp US are coming in a little over a month from now to Washington, D.C. The Community Summit, August 22nd, 23rd, WordCamp US, 24th through 26th. I'll be at both of those, and hopefully some of you will as well. If you are, tweet at me. I'd love to meet you in person and say hi. WordCamp Omaha, Nebraska, coming in October, and WordCamp Atlanta, Georgia, October 14th and 15th. I'll be at Atlanta for sure. So come on out to WordCamp, y'all. It's great to see these things happening again. And I look forward to seeing many of you in person after a very long time of not having done so. Several WordCamps globally as well. WordCamp Nairobi, Kenya, August 15th. WordCamp Jinja in Uganda, September 4th and 5th. And we have WordPress Accessibility Day coming September 27th and 28th. That's a 24-hour event with 27 presentations from presenters globally. It is free to attend, but you do have to register. There's the link there at the bottom. All right, y'all, at the end of all, we have reached here, the end of the WordPress News Roundup for July. So many things to talk about this month. Hopefully you've learned a few things and you got a couple things to research even further. That's going to do it for us today. We're back tomorrow with Kathy Zant on Cadence blocks and especially that advanced form block. Make sure you're registered for that. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Time for that webinar here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.